Okay, welcome to our Zoom call tonight. I'm really excited about this one. I know that there's a lot of people out there who sometimes think, how did such and such build their business? What did they do? How did they get to that point that they're at? How did they start? Did they teach classes? Did they do things online? What does that look like? And so I thought it'd be really interesting for us to have real live people who are building the business right now. And what are they doing? How are they working it? And what are they saying? So I asked 4 people to be guest speakers today. And these 4 people are those who are actively building the business. They get enrollments regularly, and they are like movers and shakers. So the first one that we're going to hear from tonight is Melissa Goers, and she actually is from Rosemont, Minnesota. So it's 9 o'clock her time. And right now she works as a manager at a place, and you can correct me, Melissa, if I'm wrong, I have a little piece of paper here. It's called Mind Shift Technologies, correct? She's a webinar, content, and social media manager. Awesome. So she's got a lot of information to share about that. She also is a photographer, works at Honeybee Photography. That's her own business. And she has one cute little boy. I see him on Facebook all the time. Pretty amazing. So Melissa is going to share with us something a little bit different than all the rest of them, because she works full time and she has a little boy at home, and she runs all kinds of things. So Melissa, if you can unmute yourself, share with us what you did to be able to build your business and get started in the very beginning and get those enrollments.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. And yes, I am very busy, and I have my hands in a ton of stuff. So I'm going to just briefly share how I got started. I actually enrolled in November of last year. So I will be celebrating my 1 year coming up here next month. So why I enrolled was basically on smell alone. I knew nothing about anything to do with essential oils, but my daycare provider actually diffused them in her home for the kids on guard. We're all familiar with On Guard, but that is what sold me, to at least enroll, was just based on smell. I'd drop my son off at school. We call it school. Dropped him off, and it just always smelled so amazing. My husband would pick him up, and he would come home and still smell. So I was sold just by smell alone. November, if you all have been enrolled for a while, but November is good time for the BOGOs. So I enrolled at a good time, and so I saw the BOGO deals. It's buy a Breathe, get a peppermint. Well, how could you say no to that? So I just started posting a couple posts on my personal Facebook page, and literally within it was my first week. I was approached by someone who is an acquaintance of mine, not even a friend. He was interested in the BOGO for his wife for Christmas. Long story short, it actually turned into an enrollment. So I was like, there's something here that, I wasn't even trying to quote unquote sell or anything. It was just, I felt like it was the right place at the right time. So my enrollee persuaded me to have an in-home class, which I did, and it was a great introduction for myself to learn about the specific oils, and I was just very much more intrigued by the benefits. Got 2 enrollments from that class. Yeah,
you had an enrollment before you ever even hosted a class. Is that right?
I did.
Wow, that's opposite. Typically, you'll host a class and then you get enrollment. So, okay, I love that. All right, keep going.
No, I know when you reached out for me to do this class, I was like, I started looking back at, when people enrolled, and it just reminded me of that. I totally forgot about that one. So, I was new, and so they actually didn't sign up for LRP for that enrollment, but, it was like a learning experience for me. So, and I wasn't prepared to do any of that at that time. So, after the class, I had a couple enrollments, and, I was just very much intrigued, and I just started reading and learning and researching and, talking to people, and people started asking me questions. And so I was like, there's a lot here and I'm intrigued, and I just felt like people needed to know about these. And again, I was completely thrown off guard. I wasn't expecting to do anything with it. So because I, was learning, and I was writing down everything for myself and then sharing it. So my mom would reach out, say, hey, is there anything that I can do for headaches? Well, yes, there are. And so it was like I was researching and learning for myself, so I was sharing that knowledge. So, because I was writing everything down for myself and, for family members, I decided that I was going to inform the masses. So that's kind of when I started to, I started a blog. I'm writing everything down for myself. Why not write it down and post it online? So that's kind of how I started my blog. And
Melissa, had you ever done a blog before? Was this your first time to do a blog?
Actually, it's not. I blogged for my photography. So, I had a little bit of experience, and really, it can be very, very easy. It's just a matter of typing it up, or I'm going to backtrack. At that time, it was just about typing it up and, sharing it. So I wasn't having to get into, my files every time. I could just go onto my blog and, look up stuff that I've already, learned about. So later on is when compliance comes into question. So that was one of my challenges, but it can be easily overcome. But with the blog, I needed also an avenue to share that. So that's kind of when I started my Facebook page specifically dedicated for the oils. So, at first I started, sharing the content that I was digging up and writing down in my blogs. I was sharing doTERRA posts. From there, I expanded and started creating my own posts, creating my own graphics, sharing my own personal stories and, photos of my family and I using the oils. And, just kind of one little tip just based on my experience in my full-time job, if you decide to share through social media, you kind of want to follow a 911 rule, which is, 9 educational posts, 1 personal post, and 1 sales post. And there's specific reasons.
I think everybody needs to do that, Melissa. That's awesome. So say that again one more time.
It's the 911 rule. So it's 9 educational posts. So you want to share, something specific about Breathe. Breathe helps, with respiratory function and, everything, or how you're using it. 1 personal post, I'll sometimes throw in, we're on our way up for family trip. And then 1 sales post, which is, you want to share the promos or, any incentives that you have or, anything salesy. So you just want to make sure that you're creating an environment that, people want to learn from you and not want to be, they don't want you to be sold. They don't want to be sold.
Awesome. I love that.
So just one little tip. And then, I would say my Instagram, I just started maybe a month ago. So I just felt like it was the natural progression of it. So, I guess why I chose online, Diane kind of mentioned it, I do work full time. I have a photography business on the side, and I thought it was a good opportunity for me to, because I fell in love with this, it was something that I could share and work from home and not leave my family. So that's kind of the reason why I started, to do the online business. And, you're probably wondering, well, how do I get enrollments? Are you doing classes? Where are they coming from? I did start to do classes, and that kind of, again, led from me just doing research for my own self. I started to just do, informational classes like Essential Oils 101, kitchen cleaning hacks. I've done spring cleaning. Let's see, what are some of the other emotions and essential oils? I've done a couple classes on 101 ways to use lemon, lavender, peppermint. So my
Melissa,
class curriculum is growing. I'm sorry?
Where are you teaching these classes at? Is it a Facebook class? Is it?
I am actually, it started out strictly Facebook. So we've all been to like the parties on Facebook, and that's, what my experience was. So that's what I started. I started inviting friends and family. I actually put out some Facebook ads with specific targets. If I was doing a, let's say, the emotions class, I would actually target people who, had some, anxiety or, negative emotions, and that's who I was targeting. I would have some 101 classes targeted to, mothers, and I tended to kind of stay in the Midwest region at first, just because I wanted to try to build my core around where I was. So that's kind of how I started with the online classes. And I was able to get people to invite their friends just by doing specific giveaways. So I would do, if I would do like an invite a friend giveaway. If you invite 5 friends, be entered into, some kind of drawing for, whatever it was, if it was an oil or the sample trio or whatever. I would also have participation giveaways. So the more active they were, it's like being at a live class where, you're earning your tickets, but the more active you are, you get, your ticket, and then I would have giveaways. So that's kind of how I started building my audience and building participation. From those initial classes, I was able to get 3 enrollments, book 5 classes, and build my, my 100 list beyond 100. So that's some of the success that I saw from the early classes. And what I did was actually teamed up with other MLL, multi-level marketing company. I have a friend who sells Jamberry. Everybody knows Jamberries. We all have them on. Or Unique, but we partnered up and actually did a beautiful and healthy hands class together. So we actually merged our contact list, where she was, talking about, I started the class and talked about how essential oils could make your hands healthy and, nice, and, talked about essential oils. And then she kind of talked about how to, beautify them. So from that partnership, I haven't signed up any enrollments, but I actually have 2 very solid contacts that I've been communicating with, and they are attending more of my classes. So again, it wasn't effort lost. Definitely built some good connections. And, I think the classes are morphing over time. I've started to do more hosted online classes where, I would have somebody host just like they would an in-home and invite their friends and families. And they're getting the gifts as opposed to, just the random attendees. So, and then with that, I'll mail out some samples, I have a whole packet for the host, to help coach her on how to, bring in, the people that we want in the classes. No. And then again, I just started the hosted classes. So I've actually booked extra classes and then again, a lot more contacts. So that's kind of, it's growing and morphing as I'm learning more about it. And, with that, obviously there are some challenges, just like, growing any business. One, I think I thought it was not going to be as time consuming as it was, but creating the class material and the graphics, did become very time consuming. So I found a way to be more efficient with that and actually duplicate the classes that I'm having, just like you would do for an in-home. Diane has said, multiple times over that she does the same class over and over and over. So I've started doing that with the hosted classes, and I use, an online tool called Post My Party. So I'm not creating everything from scratch. I'm actually repurposing a lot of that. And then also, just on the social side, while creating the graphics and the content is time consuming, I'm not having to go in, multiple times a day to post. I use a social publishing tool called Hootsuite, which I'm sure everybody knows about because we've partnered with Amplify now, or with Amplify.
I don't think a lot of people know what that is. So explain what that is.
Well, I signed up and I haven't started it yet. But from what I know, just because I'm doing my own thing right now, but Amplify, doTERRA's partnered with Hootsuite, and they have a product or a tool that you can use that actually they create all the graphics and they have photos for you to use. And what you do is just pull those photos up. Let's say I always go to Breathe. I don't know why. I think it's my favorite. But Breathe, how do you use Breathe? Well, you have a picture of Breathe that they supply, and you can actually create your own graphics and send it off. So, it's stuff that's already ready to go for you to customize and publish on your social platforms. So, it's something, I think it was $14 for the year. So it's relatively, a low cost, but, definitely worth checking out if you're interested in, any type of, online presence. But
absolutely,
I haven't used it yet. Just, I purchased it with the plans, but I've been doing my own thing. So, I think another one of my challenges, I don't want to take up all the time, but another one of my challenges was, like I'd mentioned, the compliant piece of it. So, when I started, I didn't know what, that there was a whole compliance issue. So my posts were out there for everyone to see. So I actually learned the right way to speak about the products. And so that was a learning experience for me, and it actually helped prepare me on how to speak about the product. So I actually was working with the compliance team over at doTERRA to get my site certified as a official doTERRA, so I can actually mention the name on my site. So we're going through that right now. Another challenge is, I believe that smelling is believing. People still wanted and needed samples. So that's when I started mailing, samples out prior to the start of my online classes. One thing that I wish that I thought of this, and I'm definitely not going to take credit, but there was the idea of reaching out to those on Facebook that you get birthday notifications. That was a huge hit for me. So every time I saw somebody's birthday, I reached out. I created a graphic saying, "Happy birthday, here, I would love to offer you a free sample for your birthday. What would you like?" And I had so many hits that I was just so surprised. People that I didn't even think would care at all. So, it's like sometimes it's just the small things.
I love that. That's a great idea.
Yep. And then, also, like everyone, I always had samples on hand. So, what I learned from that was, being prepared prior to the online classes. I was able to make a personal connection with, okay, you want a sample? Good. What is it that you're trying to solve? So I was actually able to, start building that relationship prior to the class, and having the ability to learn more about them and have interaction. And then, another thing I learned was people still wanted to meet, some people still want to meet you in person. So it was, more, an extra personal one-on-one touch. So, they attended some classes, they were local, so they still wanted to have that one-on-one. So, again,
all of your classes weren't online. You had some that were still in person. You did.
I did a lot of my online classes led to one-on-ones, and I would say, gosh, what percentage? A very, very high percentage of the one-on-ones turned into enrollment. So, I know I have a note here, 3 enrolled after online classes that ended up in a one-on-one. So that's just kind of my initial. And then the other thing is personality. You think that you're hiding behind a computer, you're posting things, you're posting information. I still felt like I needed a way to put my personality out there and build trust and build a connection. So how I adjusted my online class was by adding videos instead of just posting photos. So, I would post maybe like an introduction to the class, welcome, you know, you're going to learn about this in this class. So I would post videos instead of just posting photos. I also added a, you know, if it was like a week-long class, I added a live bingo night. So I live streamed live bingo. So that was a way to kind of get my face and my personality out there as well. And then also constantly on Facebook, I go live whenever I can. So my son, he's 2, he loves oils. He loves when I put oils in the diffuser. If I don't have it going, it reminds me, you know, so it's, my son loves oils and people love toddlers. So whenever I can show him in a video with the oils, we do that because I get hits all the time. We show, you know, how we're using the oils when we cook. If we're in the car on our way to a trip, I'll, you know, kind of live, you know, hey, we're on our way. We got our ginger, we got our peppermint. This is what we're bringing when we travel, and just everyday use.
So this is on a personal essential oil Facebook page, correct?
Yes, I do. I do live on my personal and my business page. But I you know, and I think getting video and being present and not just posting pictures and information, I think that brings the more of the personality to, you know, the audience. So
I agree.
yeah. So
I
I
have a question for you, Melissa. Are you ready for a question?
Yeah.
So the question is, can you talk more about the details of the Facebook birthday samples? Do you use little sample bottles? How many drops? And how do you mail them, package them, which service, etc.?
Yep. So for samples, when I'm mailing them, I use, what is it, the 1/4? So it is the little sample bottles.
Quarter dram, yes.
Yep. And what I typically do, one sample that I give out is 10 drops. So that's easy for me to know and calculate when it comes to tax time, if anybody's doing that. You know, every sample is 10 drops. You know, sometimes I'll venture out and do like a roller ball for somebody or whatever, but normally a sample is 10 drops. And I package that. Do I happen to have one? I don't think that I have one. They're all upstairs. But it's a little bubble mailer. It's about this big. Fits a business card, you know, like your sample. I usually Ziploc it just in case it unscrews and, you know, in transit. A little card of, you know, information that, you know, that the oil is about. And then, you know, just a little like thank you card or something. And then I handwrite a note. I use PayPal for shipping. I can print my labels at home and then it comes out of my account automatically, and then I can just save myself a trip to the post office and stick it in the mail.
Nice.
The cost, and I don't know, the cost is probably a little different, you know, in each state, but you know, it's about $250, $260 every time I send something.
Okay. Awesome. So we need to wrap up your section here a little bit. Is there anything that you would end with that you would suggest for those who are listening that you would have done differently, or maybe that you thought was what led to maybe your success in the beginning? Either one of those. You want to address that?
I would say, you know, if you're looking at doing that, you know, definitely go at your own pace. Don't do too much at once. I felt like I did so much at first that if I did it a little bit slower, I think that I would have learned, you know, the right thing to do instead of worrying about building all of my class content. I think I would have more enrollments if I did that, if I focused on 1 or 2 classes and just shared that, and then added on a class. So I think I did way too much at first. Slow down, get good at 1 or 2 things, and then move to the next. So definitely go at your own pace. Do you need to have a business page? Absolutely not. You know, start with your personal page. Share your story on your personal sites. I think you're going to find success and you know, people are going to be interested that you wouldn't think would be interested just by sharing your story. So that would be my intro for everyone.
Thank you so much. I love that what you did is different than what everybody else is going to share with us. We all have a really good perspective of different ideas to build your business. So thank you, Melissa. Okay, so you can unmute yourself, and I'm going to introduce our next speaker, and that's Erin Roberts. So Erin, you can now unmute yourself while I introduce you. So Erin is my friend. Her mother and I are actually friends before I ever met Erin. And she used to live in Arizona, but she actually moved to Oregon. And she has one little girl who's the smartest thing ever. And she used to be a teacher, and now her greatest job is just taking care of her little child at home. So her perspective is totally different than Melissa. So Erin, would you like to get on and tell us about how you started your business and give us some information?
Yes. So, hi. I am very new, very new. Just the past couple of months, I started the business side of it. So, I was on the fence. I've been doing doTERRA for quite a while, through my parents. But I was on the fence because I'm total introvert. I have a hard time talking with people. So it was a big jump for me to go into the business where that's all about sharing with people. So when I started, I didn't know what to do at all. So I did the Jumpstart Your Business training, and had a wonderful mentor come up and show me the first couple classes to do. I tried to stay to the letter of the Jumpstart Your Business. I had my 100 that I sent invites to, and I did the 3 contact method. And the way I did the 3 contact method was just through Facebook and texts and emails, just because that's my personality. It would makes me all blah, 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 to talk to people.
That's great, because you know what? Nowadays, that's how people respond the best, is through text and Facebook messages. Yeah, no, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it worked for me, and so and a lot of the contacts that were outside of that were because I was wearing the oils, putting them on, and so people would ask me, "What are you putting on?" or "What are you using?" Or I would say that my daughter was sick last night, and they'd say, "Just last night?" Like, yeah, she's good today. I slathered oils on her. So that got a lot of people interested in it too. And then I've ever since then, so like now going in, I'm starting to get into the role of things, because the first few were kind of rocky, just trying to get into a flow of something. I started to do themes for classes. So I do teaching in your face classes, not online classes. And it was a big jump for me going from kids to adults. But I've learned that with themes, that's how I teach better. So like we have a Harry Potter theme, making potions, rollerballs coming up. And that one has a huge amount of RSVPs coming in just because it's got a theme. And, you know, I did a back to school theme and a emotions kind of all mixed into that too. So
hey, Erin, talk about that a little bit. I love that. So it's a Harry Potter theme where you're making potions. Are you guys listening to this, like this Halloween, October-ish type thing? I want to come to that. Like, so cool.
Yes. It got people interested. And it actually happened because of one of our emotions classes. They were like, it's like we're making, you know, people call it all kinds of stuff like witchcraft and voodoo. And we were all making fun of the different things people call it when you first introduce them. And they said, it's like we're making potions. And I was like, oh, you know, and I'm such a Harry Potter nerd. And I love Halloween. So that's how I decided to make it into a big theme night where they're going to come and make their own potion. And, you know, I'm calling it different things, like so the breathe brew and, you know, different, I don't know, I'd have to look it up. But yeah, there's different things going on with that. We're just making a night of it, serving butterbeer and all.
Very cool. Okay, so you set up your 4 classes. Tell us what the results were from that. So I don't mind them all knowing I was the one who traveled out there and helped you and trained you with all those classes. And tell us what the results were from those 4 classes.
Well, it was interesting. There was only 1 enrollment from the first night. We did a bingo night. And I think because they were so overwhelmed.
One that night, but eventually there were several more that came. So I think it's good for them to know that was 20 people there. And even though 1 enrolled that night, eventually there were several more enrollments that sometimes you forget to count time.
Yes, and it was from that first night. So a lot of people came to multiple classes because they were so overwhelmed with information and they wanted to just have more information and more experiences with the oils because they loved the experiences. And each one was kind of different. So they really enjoyed that. But yeah, eventually I got quite a few people were enrolled because they were able to experience the oils in different times and more personal. The smaller classes for me seem to have more success because we were able to sit, like our lunch and learn, where we were able to sit around the table and just kind of have a conversation instead of me lecturing. So
okay, so explain to them what a lunch and learn is. There might be people on who have never heard what that is.
Well, we just had, I think there were maybe 4 people there, and we just did a lunch and had the oils in the middle of the table and just chatted about the different experiences that we had. We kind of went through the tear pad, but yeah, the people seemed to be more comfortable just because it was more of just a little small group of just kind of hanging out and eating, and they were able to put oils in their waters, which was a cool experience for them, and try the different oils that way too. So
so the 4 people who came to that class, if I remember, they all enrolled. They all are now eventually enrolled or booked a class, correct?
yes.
Yeah. So you had a lot of success from those classes that you did, and you're still doing classes and holding bookings that come from those classes, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of them, I get down on myself like a lot of us do, when they don't enroll or don't book the class that night. But I've noticed that with the bookings that I've gotten for future classes have always been later on. So the classes now that I have coming up that are not my own personal classes, like the Harry Potter one is for another person. She was actually that first enrollment in the bingo night that I'm hosting the Harry Potter night for. So it's over a month later that she's like, hey, I think I want to do this. So that was one of those things I just needed to be patient and not worry about getting those booked that night.
That is so true. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because a lot of people think, dang, I left the class, nobody enrolled and nobody booked anything. However, you have to go back because they eventually will come to another one, and they'll come around. They always do, every single time. Okay, so does anybody have any questions for Erin that they would like to post in the chat? And I will ask Erin those questions. By the way, we have somebody who says, I love that themed idea. Harry Potter, love it. Oh my gosh, great idea. So they're all loving your Harry Potter idea. Okay, there we go. So Erin, how do you keep track of the people to do your follow-up? That's a good question.
I'm a spreadsheet girl. I've got a spreadsheet on. I know some people do sticky notes and stuff, but yeah, I have to do a spreadsheet. And I usually, there's different color highlights depending on if they enrolled or if they booked a class, and then I'll put next to it what samples I have sent them, or if they followed up, if they said, whatever back to me, I'll put that in so I can go back and refer to do those follow-ups.
Nice. So would you say that every single person you enrolled, you actually met them and talked to them and you're at a class with them, correct? They were all either at a class or one-on-one?
Yes.
Okay. So just, there's all different ways to teach classes. I mean, Melissa had a fabulous turnout doing them online and all kinds of things. And then here's Erin, and yet they both are doing very successful. Okay, so here's another question for you. How did you run your roller bottle class? Well, I don't think you've done it yet, right? But maybe you can tell me.
I did an emotions rollerball back to school.
Did you do a one-on-one with the oils and then do the roller balls, or how are you going to work that? So just kind of give us an idea of how you plan on working it.
Everybody sat around the table because that worked so well with the lunch and learn. I decided to do it that way, and I had the different blends around the table. And I just had the tear pad that I was teaching from, and I went through the tear pad first. And then after doing that part of it, I went into, okay, if you can walk around and see which blends speaks to you that you want to make tonight. And they sat down right in front of there, and then I showed them how to make one, and they just went at it.
Yeah. You had them around the class, and they went and kind of chose which one spoke to them. And did you charge them for making one, or was that kind of their gift for coming?
That was their gift for coming. The Harry Potter one is a charged one.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. I love that. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Erin. Very sweet, simple, to the point. It worked. You had a great turnout. You have more bookings from it. sounds like a perfect way to do business to me. It's just, I'm the one that taught you, so I don't know, I can say that, right? Okay. All right, thank you so much. So let's introduce our next guest, and that's going to be Karen Black. So Karen, if you can unmute yourself, and let me introduce you. So Karen's from Shephard, Arizona, and get this, she has 6 kids. Okay, so any of you who say, I can't do this business, I have too many kids. Well, Karen does it. She also works full-time. She works at the School for the Deaf and the Blind. She's a teacher there. Isn't that amazing? She's almost a premier. Her husband wasn't on board in the beginning, but he's now joined with her, and you'll see him at any of the trainings they have, and Karen's amazing. So Karen, unmute yourself and let's hear from you. Share with us how you started your business, what you did, and where your success came from.
Okay, first of all, I'm very much into the emotion roller bottles. And so I have my chart here, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm a little anxious, I'm a little fearful. So I've used peace. And then a little later, I decided, oh, I might need some motivate. And so I have quite a few oils on right now, and I just love the sense of it.
I have mine too. I just was putting on some
before
we started. I know. Okay.
You and use them throughout the day.
Yes.
So sorry about that, but anyone that knows me, they'll know that if you get me talking about doTERRA, I will go on forever and ever and ever until they have to leave, because I'll really stay on forever with them. But I talked to Diane and I told her I would keep it short and simple, and so I'm going to hold to that promise. But she wanted me to tell you how I made my first $100 with doTERRA, and how I went about that. And to go back to the beginning on that, it was in February of 2014. I had a son that I love very dearly. Of course, I love all my children, but he was suffering with depression and anxiety really bad. And he was waiting for a psychologist appointment, which was scheduled for like another 2.5 months out. Meanwhile, I saw him struggling with this so much. And so one day I was in the grocery store and I ran into Alicia McBride, and I knew from Facebook that she did doTERRA oils. And so I happened to stop and ask her and tell her a little bit about my son. And she told me, I wrote this down a little bit on this part, but that essential oils could affect emotions and support emotional healing. And I thought, And then she went on to tell me that if I was interested, that she had a hand scan. And if I would bring my son by the following night, if I wanted to, that she would scan him and we can go from there. And so
hold on right here, Karen. I'm not sure everybody on the call knows what a hand scan is. So it's a Zytoscan. And tell us a little bit about what it is.
It's just a hand scan. It's a device. What was that?
Hand cradle.
It's a hand cradle device that hooks up to your computer, and she has the doTERRA license, and so it takes about 2-3 minutes, and it analyzes your energies, really, energetic fields in your body, and then it prints out a report, and in that report, it gives you a lot of information. But when we first saw it, it was just a whole bunch of oils. I had no clue what the oils were, but Alicia opened up 2 different books. One was the Modern Essential book, and one was the Emotions book. And my son looked at it, and he wasn't too all excited about this, but he looked at it, and the physical side, it was like, no. And so she gave him the emotional side, and he read it, and he was kind of private about it. And then he let me take a look at it. And when I read it, I could not believe that that was him, how he was feeling, how he was, I never had words to really describe him. And there it was in words. And I'm like, how did that happen? Because that was just, how could that come up so easily on that? So then of course, I had to have a hand scan done too. And so when I read, definitely, I thought it was emotions. Everything is emotions to me. I thought, now I find out later, oh, it could be a little physical too. But when I read it, I decided to take a sample from her, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to buy the one bottle, Daniel's top bottle, for his emotions, because I'm like $18. It was retail price, and it seemed like a lot of money to me at that time. Ha ha ha. So I went ahead and bought that, and we took it home, and I took my sample home, and he used it that night. And the next morning he was up and showered and dressed before the rest of us. And that was something really huge for him. And I was like, there's something to this, I think. So I started using my samples, and within a couple of days I had a release of emotions, I would say. And there's some things that I had been suppressing, I don't know if that's the right word, but suppressing for the last 23 years. And I never knew I was even suppressing it. And so it's been since the time I was married. And so I was able to talk to my husband, and a lot of emotions came out. And I couldn't believe how much relief I felt from that. And I had no clue that that was even keeping me down. And so I decided I wanted to find out on how to buy more oils. And so I went back and met with Alicia, and she asked me if I was interested in an account, or she told me the best way would be for me to get an account so I can get the 25% off. And so we set up an account, and I was already so excited that I have already told, I'm private, but I'm not private, because when it comes to my friends, I like to talk. And so I've already told them my experiences with the oils and about this Zyto handstand. And so when Alicia asked me that night, when we were signing up, where did she think I would go with this? Am I going to be just a user, or am I going to be someone that is going to be sharing and you want to sell the oils? And I'm like, well, I've already been sharing, so I guess I might want to sell the oils. And I think she wasn't quite sure about that answer, but okay. So she's like, let's have a class. And so I'm like, all right, let's do a class. And so that next Friday night we had a class at my house, and I invited some of my friends. I don't have much family around, but my friends came to it. And I learned a lot in that first class from Alicia. And I didn't realize the power of essential oils, and I was just really fascinated by them. And I happened to have 4 of my friends sign up that night. And Alicia asked me at the very end if I wanted them to be put underneath me, or if just on how to go about how I wanted to do this on that part. And I'm like, yeah, put them underneath me. And so little did I know, within a few days, it wasn't very long at all, I was getting my mail, and a check was in the mailbox from doTERRA. And I was like, what? Well, how did I get this check from doTERRA? I mean, I haven't really done anything. But there was one check that came in, and the next thing I knew, I started getting another check like weekly. And before I knew it, I had made $100, and that wasn't hard at all. And so
let's just clarify. So that $100 was a combination of the fast start you got from those enrollments from that initial class that Alicia did, right?
Exactly.
And so from that, did you have more classes after that you held, or did Alicia hold them, or how did that work?
Well, Alicia actually placed me under one of her builders, Nina Carpenter. And so I went to many of her classes and learned a lot as much as I could from her. However, I started seeing the oils work, and I couldn't stop at just seeing how the oils worked. And so I would spend countless hours. I mean, I would work during the day, but I would stay up until way into the middle of the night listening to YouTube, on anything on doTERRA, the oils. I was reading books. Anything I could do and get my hands on. I was trying to find out more about doTERRA and the oils and their products. And as you talked about in the front, that I am an itinerant teacher. So when I'm on the road, I was starting to listen to any talks on that too. And I became very passionate about that. And so when I started learning what the oils could do, and when I would talk to people and they would actually start telling me some of their issues that they were going through, I had I can't say red flags, but I knew some oils already that kept popping up in my mind. I said, you know what, I think I have something I can help you with. And I told them it was essential oils, and if they were into that, or if they were okay with that, and they were. And so I have multiple folders of each individual that I would research what was going on with them, and then we would get back together and talk about that, and that helped with some enrollments at the very beginning too. I was still fascinated with the Zytoscan, and so the next thing I knew, I had to have one, and so I did buy a Zytoscan, and we do have classes, we do have oil support groups in our area, and every third Tuesday of each month, there's one at my house, and I also like the theme nights, or to do something, make and take, and get them involved, or have something that they can do when they come. But the main thing, and I don't know, I might be a little, because like I said, I was in February of 2014, and I did hit Premier once, so I'm not, I'm still trying to get that solid Premier, but I really do each individual separately, and we do have classes, or we do a booth or whatever, but I get my most enrollments by that one-on-one interaction with them. And
so I love that. You Zytoscan them, you help them figure out something that will work with whatever their ailment is, and then you enroll them. Would you say that is how you do that?
Exactly. But before I even had a Zytoscan, the emotion book and the essential oil book at the time, Modern Essential Oils book, is the one that I was using to help them look up their symptoms and so forth. And that's what Nina had taught me about, looking up what they were wanting some help in. And so, but then once I've gotten the Zytoscan, it's been really hard for me not to share it. And I got it mostly for my family. And like I said, I have 6 children. And not only Daniel is not the only one that benefited from us. We all benefited from the Zytoscan, but we just benefit from doTERRA in general. We don't always have to go to the scan to decide, okay, what do we need today? That's not it at all, other than it does give us a direction when there's certain things, events that come up, or certain symptoms that we're starting to have, and we're like, what's going on? And, so we're able to look it up. I don't know if I have time to tell.
We have a question for you, Karen. The question is, can you tell us a little bit more about how you do the one-on-ones? And that's a good question. Like, do you call them and say, can I meet with you? Or did you meet them at a class? How did you get them to do a one-on-one with you?
Okay, before I had the Zytoscan, it was just taking a personal interest in them. And it's just something, I knew that they had certain elements going on, and I would just start talking to them about it and how they're doing with that and so forth. And so that was helpful on that part, on getting one-on-ones. But when I talk about, like when I approached Alicia in the store, and she talked to me about the Zytoscan, it kind of made me want to go check this out. And so that's where I get a lot of, we're already talking about it. I tell them about the Zytoscan, and they want one, and the next thing I know, their family wants one, and then their friends want one, and it just keeps on going that way. But I spend a lot of one-on-one time with people, and once they have their scan done, we look at both the emotion and the physical side, and only they can tell which is true for them. And a lot of them, oils, are both emotions and physical that they're dealing with. And so then once I sign them up, when their order comes in, I always make sure I meet with them to set up a way for them to use their oils to make it the most friendly user. To use their oils.
Would you say with the one-on-ones, the majority of the time you are just talking about their ailments and what can help them, or are you actually going through a written pad and telling them this is how the oils work, this is what you do? What is it you're saying to them when you're with them one-on-one?
Okay, when they first come in, when we're first talking about them, or if I've talked to them previously, I ask them, how much do you know about essential oils? And so I give them a little bit of background on essential oils before the scan even starts. And then once I do a scan, even though it prints out a report, I keep those old type of papers that when you write things down, it Carbon copy, because there's been so many times that I'll write something down and then write maybe a way to use it. And without the carbon copy, when they called up and they would say something, I would be like, I can't quite remember exactly what I told you, but, so I would go from there. So the carbon copies help out a lot. But I write down exactly what they stand for, and then we go through the books and we look at the emotion side. And a lot of times, actually, I would say 99% of the time, I have found it to be really accurate for them at that time, of what they're feeling at that time or what they're going through at that time. But to follow up on that once they're enrolled, and that's what's kind of hardest, because they sometimes just want to buy those oils that they stand for. And so if that's what they really want, I just still go ahead and let them do that. But when the oils come in, it was very important to me to make sure I meet with them to help them make roller bottles, spray bottles, spritz, salves, whatever they need to be able to utilize the oils they have. Because the last thing I want is for their oils to come in and sit on a shelf and get dusty.
Absolutely.
So that's pretty much.
I love that, Karen. So isn't it interesting, everybody, that we've heard from 3 different people, and all 3 of them have built their business 3 different ways, but yet they've been very successful. So I love that. Thank you for that perspective, Karen. That is awesome. Okay, we are going to turn the time over to our last speaker, and this is actually 2 together. We have Chris and Kaylee Massimini. So if you 2 could unmute yourself and get ready. They're both from Chandler, Arizona. They don't live too far away from me. Kaylee actually studied interior design before she decided to actually become a mom. She has 3 cute little girls. And get this, she just had a baby. I think her baby is 5 months old. She's the cutest thing. If you want to go on Facebook and look at her, you can, because she's got the best little chubby cheeks. Chris's brother is a chiropractor, and they have a little take on this as how they do their business. And here's the interesting part. Chris just recently no longer works at the job that he has, and they're decided they're going to do doTERRA together. So Chris and Kaylee, if you can get on and share with us a little bit of how you started your business, what you're doing now to build it, and enlighten us.
Okay, so we started doTERRA it was the end of August, so it's been a little over a year now. Brooke Harper is our upline, and she originally approached me and was like, hey, do you want to do this? And I'm like, oils are interesting, but this is not me at all.
I was super, super skeptical about it.
Yeah, he was super skeptical about the oils, and then once the business portion came in, he was like, oh, okay, yeah.
Money?
Yeah.
He is a typical man. Good job, Chris.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. These oils interest me a lot, but I don't know if I really want to. I'm not this type of person at all. I'm not very talkative, and I don't really put myself out there a lot. And so Chris was like, okay, well, I'll just do it with you and I'll help you. And I thought he would just be, supportive and nice about it, but it's definitely turned into a lot more than that, which I really like. And so let's see.
So tell us how you first started. So Brooke approached you, and did you say, okay, I'll just host a class, or what happened?
Yeah, it was at a bingo. And I got swept up with all the, yes, I'll host a class, and yes, I'll do this because, yeah, it's free stuff and, more chances.
Right.
So the incentives totally got me.
Everybody loves free stuff.
Yeah. And I also had I was like 5 weeks pregnant at the time. And so I was looking for issues or for things to solve my issues that I knew was going to come up. I'd be, sick as a dog for most of my pregnancy. So I was looking for that. I was looking for, my daughter had a cough at the time that I was trying to figure out, do I need to take her to the doctor to it, or, can I just do something on my own? So there were a few things that I just kind of had on my mind. I had been introduced to oils before, but I'm like, we don't really get sick that often, so I don't really need it. I believed in them, but I was just like, they're not really for us. So yeah, I went to that class, and I was like, okay, this is great. And so Brooke came back, and she gave Chris and I together a little mini class, and Chris was still pretty much on the fence about it until, like I said before.
And I was super tired that night.
Yeah, it wasn't a good time. But yeah, he was on the fence about it, and then I was just gonna get a kit and I was going to get on LRP, and then Brooke was like, hey, do you want to do the business? And I'm like, that sounds scary. So Chris and I talked about it, and he said he was just gonna do it with me. So that's been good to have someone, a husband supporting us in that way and just being able to do it together. Since he was working full time, I kind of had to take the reins for most of it, but he helped when he could. He would, take samples into work, or like he took a diffuser and he diffused it at work, or I would get like a text or a phone call and be like, hey, can you come and let's go eat lunch together, and can you bring this, and this sample? I have someone at work that needs this sample. So it was just little ways. Sometimes he would teach a class, sometimes I would teach a class. It just would, whoever made the contact, really.
We'd switch off watching kids and things like that.
Yeah, because then there's kids too.
We have 3 kids.
Yes.
So
the oldest is 4?
4.
4.
Yeah.
Yep, 3 under the age of 4. So there's a question that came in, is what role do you each play in the business? I think you kind of talked about it a little bit, but do you have something that you have defined, like this is definitely my role, this is yours, or do you just both do everything?
I think we're trying to figure that out slowly but surely, especially now that we're doing it full time. That's definitely something that we're still trying to figure that out. When we weren't doing it full time, so like a month ago, I would do most of it, and it would be more of like, hey Chris, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that?
I would do graphics,
yeah,
stuff on the computer, put things together and things like that.
Yeah.
Also, I would help come up with ideas on how to get new people to come to classes and things like that. And then, like you mentioned, my brother, we're trying to figure out ways that we can include chiropractors in on this, so that we can appeal to that mass, and especially with convention that just happened, with all the medical data that is going to come out, and I wish it would come out like tomorrow. I guess it won't, but yeah, soon.
So how would you two say that you got your first initial enrollments, and which led to your first $100? Was it just hosting classes, or did you talk to people? What was it? Giving samples?
Yeah, I think it was just a little bit of everything, to be honest. I can't remember exactly when, we made the first 100, but I looked, and back in March is when we hit our 250 bonus for the first time. And I feel like that's when it was like, oh wow, okay, this is like actual money, that we could like pay a bill with or something like that. I'm sure we made 100 more or sooner than that, but I think it was just a little bit like obviously I want to host classes, but I really like one-on-ones because I'm not an outgoing person. I'm really comfortable with one-on-ones. So
I like the crowds.
Yeah, Chris likes the crowds. He went on a 2-year mission for our church, so he is okay with classes, and I'm still like, oh, do I have to teach a class? But I'll get over that.
Okay, that's perfect. You guys complement each other very well. Okay, does anybody have any questions? Okay, here we have somebody who has a question. Chiropractors, I have my first meeting with the chiro office later this month. Any advice? You guys have any advice for them?
Yeah, I would definitely. So what I did is I put together a pretty much a little flyer of a kit that I believe would help them, which I know would help them. Basically, it consists of deep blue, aroma touch, white fir, lemongrass, and then my brother also suggested talking a lot about On Guard and mood oils, because he said that there's nothing worse than having a patient come in with a bad attitude as you're trying to work on them. So he said to really try to work that angle along with it. So have a diffuser with you, bring some mood samples, and show them how to use the diffuser to help lighten the mood for the patients that come in and out.
Love that. Great idea. And Yep. Chris showed me a flyer that he had the other day, which is very professional, put together. He's going to be placing in other chiropractic offices, which I thought was brilliant. So I think that's what you were talking about when you were saying that, Chris. So any other questions? I know, Melissa, you had a question. I think we answered that for you. Any other questions that you guys might have for Chris or Kaylee? You guys are having an interesting situation because nobody on here, I don't know very many people on our team who actually do husband and wife. So it really is quite an interaction of, is this his job or my job, or what are we doing and how are we working this together? So it'll be interesting to see later on how you guys kind of figured that out, because it's definitely not easy. As you might have seen in the past week or two, I met with them last week and it was fun. So, okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. So do you guys have any advice for us of maybe something that you would do differently when you started the business that you realized was a mistake? Something you would change?
Just something that we would do better. One thing that we really struggled with, and I think it was just lack of experience and all of that, but we struggled with getting classes from classes. So that is, it's kind of biting us in the butt right now, but I mean, we're definitely going to push for that more, because we really need the volume to be able to grow our business. And I just wanted to point out that I love how Karen she was looking off to the screen. I'm sure her husband was saying,
He was.
yeah. So I'm glad that you have that support too there, Karen.
Yes, thank you. So Karen also builds with her husband as well. So I should have said, you're one of the only few people we know. So awesome. Thank you, Karen. Okay, so Melissa is asking you, how did you find your builders? So do you have builders right now, and how did you find them? Or are you your builders, or how's that going for you?
Builders, we have like one good solid builder. Builders kind of keep coming in and out right now, honestly.
So normal.
Real builders. But I think we have one good solid builder that hopefully will watch this later. But
she's totally on board with everything.
Yeah.
She's even going out to assisted living homes and talking to them.
Chris just went out with her today.
Her and I just went out today to an assisted living home.
Yeah.
So
very exciting. That's when your business starts, when you got somebody who's excited with you and you take it and just run with them.
It's good.
Very cool.
Nice.
Okay, well, thank you so much. This has been fun. I love that I just want you all to know, I did not prepare any of them for what we were going to do tonight. I didn't ask them questions ahead of time. I wanted this to be real and open with what they said, and yet all four of them told us different stories of how they built their business, what they did, and I love that. I hope that gives you all a little insight that there isn't just one way to do this. You need to work at what resonates with me, what do I feel comfortable doing. Take that, run with it, and just be so excited about your business. So we are done for tonight. Thank you all for being on the call. I think this was very informative. We'll be doing more of these with guest speakers, so stay on with us, and I will let you know when they come about. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. See you later.